Joe, I'm very honoured to meet you because you're one of Fermanagh's leading local historians and you've published great stuff. And it's so wonderful to have you here in this Lisa's beautiful cottage. And with so many things to talk about, but I would love to know your experience through your life of seeing the thatch houses disappear.
Yeah. Well, most small farms and even Bleak Village had quite a number of thatched houses, where my father founded a business in an old forge in 1922. He only rented it, and it was a thatched building. And the only place left in Bleak now is the Thatched restaurant. And in those days, like, you would have had maybe 5, 6, 7. You know, that many thatched in the village alone. When my father was born, where my uncle lived, that was originally thatched. And my uncle lived there until he was 92 or 93. And then he left us the farm and the house, and then we could no longer afford to keep it thatched, we got it renovated. But nearly all our houses were thatched. Most of the thatched houses are like this one here, situated east to west, you know, so that you get the sun in the morning. But the one we lived in Bleak, and very few more, went from north to south. Why that was, I don't know, you know. In those days, like, they grew their own wheat or flax or whatever you needed, and they were able to supply their own straw for the thatching. They had plenty of wood to get scallops, and nearly every family had a person who was quite a good thatcher, and that's so much changed now. But the Thatch coffee house in Bleak, I think, is the only one in County Fermanagh in a village or town left. So that we're very familiar with the thatch.
Why do you think it disappeared? You know, this is a great survival, but why are most of them gone, the thatch houses?
Well, I suppose finance and scarcity of thatchers and one thing and another. And I think the weather has changed a little bit. That, you know, like in my young days, you could see fields with straw. I remember one of the times that we had to close down during the Troubles, and I took the family away for a drive way through Donegal, you know. And one of the daughters seen this field. She says, "Mommy," she says, "look at the field, the colour of cornflakes." You know, but that would have been the reason for the dying out of the thatch, like we just. The availability of material and finance.
It's more expensive to keep thatch.
Yeah, so that they wouldn't have been able to do that, you know. It's lovely to see them, like this house here.
Oh, they're awesome.
Especially
gems.
like one of the photographs there with a nice colourful gold colour, then that changes naturally to dark brown with being weathered, you know.
And did you know the people who lived here?
Oh yes, I remember John Byrne, his father Paddy, was quite a character. He was putting in the hay, and there was a neighbour over the road here, and he was a great man for talking, but not for working. And about 6 o'clock in the evening, old Paddy says to Willie, he says, "Willie, you think you could go home now?" He says, "You must be tired." He says, "You talked a lot all day."
That's very good.
And there was a story then told was, he was sitting here at the fireside, you see, and the wife was lamenting with the toothache, and he looked at her and he says, "May God increase your pain and multiply your sorrow, that as bad as you are today, you may be twice as bad tomorrow."
Very good.
You know, it's just, he was a poet. And
yeah. How many rooms were in this cottage?
there would have been all the sort of, most of the cottage with 3, you had the kitchen and bedroom, and you had the went into the kitchen, and then usually the big bedroom was the parents slept there, and the children slept in the other one, you know. In those days, like, the boys and girls would have shared the one room, you know.
Yes.
So that would have been easy enough.
Isn't it great that Lisa's kept the open hearth?
Yeah, and the crane crook, you see there, and I think that's one there. It's a shop-made one. Some of them were made in the forges.
But all the cooking was done there. Well, all the cooking was done from
Oh
the
yes,
How did the cook?
and they lowered it or raised it up, cooking the bread. Then they had a cooking oven, and
That was like a pot.
it is
Pot.
about that depth, and cooking the bread. They had the fire underneath. They put hot coals on the top, and that cooked the bread. And then they were churning. They churned their own butter too as well, and they used that in connection with some sermons by priests. If you were churning the butter, once you got to a certain point, you stopped. If you over-churned, you spoiled the butter. So a lot of people said that about some priest sermon. They over-churned it. You know, there was one great priest that I knew. He said, if you can't get it over in 10 minutes, forget about it. You know, a lot of them talk because they like to hear themselves talking. You know.
Was the churning done outside or here in the kitchen? Or?
Oh, the churn was there were two types of churn. There was a barrel churn with a staff up and down like this, and then there was another one that you wound around, two different types of churns. See, everybody took a turn at the dash, they called it, and then they lifted the butter. And they made the homemade butter then. And
how often would they have churned?
I'd say probably maybe monthly. Enough cows, you see. They took the cream off, made their butter, and then in later years when the Agricultural Wholesale Society founded the creameries, it was taken to the creamery of Bleak, which was founded about 1908 or thereabouts. My grandfather was one of the first managers. The biggest place in Ireland for quantity of butter is Cork. The best place for quality was Fermanagh.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's something to do with the sort of maybe the feeding in the mountains and whatever it was. And Bleak Creamery, I think in my grandfather's time, they got awarded different gold medals for the quality of their butter. So that's provable.
You must remember the days before electricity, do you? The days before electricity.
Oh yes.
How did they cope like a cottage like this?
And the cottages, they had candles. Some candles were homemade, and some were shop bought. They had paraffin oil lamps, and my father used to sell paraffin oil, and they could buy paraffin and put them into the lamps and have them, you know. So that was the means of lighting, and then the electricity came in then about 1950s and thereabouts, you know.
You mentioned whitewashing. How often would they whitewash the house?
Probably about once a year. That was the lime. They burned the lime in the lime kiln. They quarried the stone, the limestone, and burned it then in the lime kiln. They would have whitewashed the inside of the house if there was visitors coming. If there were Americans coming, they whitewashed the house, they whitewashed the outside, and they used a heather tied to the rope, and they used that as a brush, and they whitewashed the house, outside and inside, of course. And if there was any special occasion, like a wedding or a funeral or anything like that, they whitewashed the house.
Yeah, and it looks so beautiful.
Both inside and outside. Yeah.
But tell me, with your fireman's hat on, did you ever attend any fires at Thatch cottages?
Oh yes, we did. One very terrible one where 3 people lost their lives in, you know. But funny enough, like any other emergency service in a fire brigade, when you're on a serious incident, like be a car accident or anything like that, you're the only person who can do anything to help. Yeah. And I was always strong enough not to let that affect me, you know. And unfortunately, we got the call about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we went out, and we had a wee Land Rover fire engine that time, four of us on it. And my brother Sean, it was his turn to drive. And we got up, the thing was, what actually happened, I discovered later, the family were in this bedroom, father and mother were in this bedroom here, and they woke up with the fire. They got through the kitchen safely into the other bedroom where the kids were, and they managed to get 1 or 2 of them out, and then the roof collapsed, and the 2 parents and 1 of the boys lost their lives, you know. And I discovered after, and even long after the inquest, an electrician was putting an electric wire in the house for electricity, and I was talking to him. He told me that one of the main beams had fractured. And he's seen that, you know. There was nothing, if it hadn't been fractured, the roof wouldn't have collapsed, you know. And there was a bridge down at the bottom of the farm on the road where the bloody provost had bombed a machine that was there. And it's quite possible that as a result of that bomb, that beam fractured. It's a possibility, it's only an opinion, you know, but a possibility. And it's quite possible that those guys were responsible for the deaths.
I'm just looking out the window and I'm looking at the Abbey, Keenaghan Abbey.
Yeah. And the original way in was a gate I showed it to leads us up on the main road there.
Yeah.
You see, that road was only built when Fermanagh Castle was built, the Johnson family. They didn't want the people passing by their castle. And that road was built there, a new road, so that the public could go there. And the official entrance, then there's a gate up there that the people could leave the road and could come down in. Prior to that, they just carried the things across the fields.
The coffins.
Yeah. And if there was somebody died, like up where Lisa comes from, and their relations were buried here, what they did, each townland supplied carriers. They carried the coffin from one townland to the other, handed over to the next townland until they eventually got here. So,
when was the last burial?
The last burial, well, I think Leonard, I think she was from here originally, and she was in a nursing home in Castlederg. So the last burial, and she expressed a wish. She was an aunt of Pat's wife, or a cousin of Aunt's wife, and Pat inquired with the county council about permission and all that sort of thing, and they said no problem. No problem at all.
Oh, right.
So John Barnhole would have been the last two to have been buried there. Yeah.
If I could ask you quite a penetrating question, what do you think the future for thatched cottages, thatched houses will be? Will they survive without help?
Oh, well, as long as you've got people like Lisa here, and as long as people can, I really think like that they should get a lot of financial support.
Yes.
You know, from government departments to preserve them.
That's absolutely essential.
For the part of our, like in, so there's quite a number of thatched buildings in England, well preserved there.
Yes.
And probably maybe in parts of the continent too as well, you know. So it's,